So Shahrazad starts to tell her first story at the prompting of her sister, and her new husband is just sort of sitting there like, all right, sure, tell a story. How long could this be? And what's the first story that she tells of all the possible stories she knows, and turns out she knows quite a few. It's a story of overreaction, of somebody acting irrationally at a provocation. It is said, O wise and happy king, kissing her new husband's tush, that once there was a prosperous merchant who had abundant wealth, investments, and commitments in every country. Bear in mind how many merchants we run into throughout the 1001 Nights. There are many different gradations of society portrayed, but merchants come up quite a lot. This is, by and large, a culture of commercial interests, of mercantilism, of people who travel around an awful lot, where they have an opportunity to tell and hear a lot of stories. But also it is a profoundly sophisticated culture, urbanized even, where the danger tends to come, the interactions with something scary tends to come outside the city, out in the middle of nowhere, as the phrase would have it. So in this one day, he goes on this trip. He has a business trip. Things go well. He's on his way back. He came to a spring under a walnut tree, and, my page 612, tying his horse, sat by the spring, pulled out from the saddlebag some loaves of bread and a handful of dates, and began to eat, throwing the date pits left and right until he had enough. And then he got up, performed his ablutions, and performed his prayers. Ablutions are a ritualistic cleansing. You need to be clean in order to pray, and this comes up again and again. Honestly, and it's a sign that he is a respectful and pious person. But he's sitting there just mindlessly throwing these stones or pits, date pits, and at one point, a demon walks up to him and says, I'm going to kill you. And he said, well, why? And he said, well, you killed my son. And how? I'm just sitting here having a snack. And the idea was that one of the date pits hit his son and killed him. Clearly not a intentional act, not a premeditated act in any way. Perhaps this son of a demon did die as a result of this, but there was clearly no deliberate action on the merchant's part, and he is a little overwhelmed at this. Like, I didn't do anything, and I think the smallness of it, the smallness of the incident compared to the gravity of the punishment is significant, because it jumps out. And whenever you see something that jumps out at you, like, that just doesn't fit. That's not, who would think of that? I don't care how many thousands of years ago, it doesn't seem right. But isn't that the point? Why else would Shahrazad pick this story? Why would she tell this story? Because she is facing an unjust punishment, along with all of female kind, an unjust punishment for a unintentional act. So she's trying to tell him this little story and to drag him along. And she's got these little narrative bells and whistles that appeal. But that is the basic premise of the story, overreaction. And it's subtle, but it is sneaking in under the radar of her husband, the king. They have this little argument, and he begs, please forgive me. The demon replied, by God, I must kill you as you killed my son. very absolutist, very clear as a bell, but irrational. Well, perhaps rational, but out of proportion. He then seized him, throwing him to the ground, raised his sword to strike him. This is a dramatic image. The merchant began to weep and mourn his family and his wife, his children. Again, the demon raised his sword, began to weep, and again he mourned his family, his wife, and his children, showing he has a connection to humanity there. He has a family. He has bonds within within the family, within on earth. Again, the demon raised his sword to strike, while the merchant cried until he was drenched in tears, saying, "There is no power or strength save in God Almighty, the Magnificent." And he began to recite the following verses, and he has this little poem, a song of sorts, and it's heartbreaking, but it leaves the demon completely unimpressed. He immediately, when the song ends, when the merchant finished and stopped weeping, the demon said, "By God, I must kill you as you killed my son, even if you weep blood." Doesn't matter. Unmoved, totally divorced from humanity and from any sense of connection. No empathy, no sympathy, no mercy. The merchant is begging. The merchant is showing devotion to humanity and to God and begging for his life, and the demon doesn't care. This is a value being expressed to you. And you can just see the merchant asked, "Must you?" The demon replied, "I must," and raised his sword to strike. And you can see this great cinematic moment where he's holding a sword up high and about to slash down at him. And then, of course, because this is great cinema, but morning overtook Shahrazad. She lapsed into silence, leaving King Shahryar burning with curiosity to hear the rest of the story. Then Dinarazad, her sister, said to her sister Shahrazad, "What a strange and lovely story." Shahrazad replied, "What is this compared to what I shall tell you tomorrow night, if the king spares me and lets me live?" Clever. She uses this story to drag out her sentence. And, this is a big dramatic moment. This is a cliffhanger, as, as it has come to be called. And the king thought to himself, "I will spare her until I hear the rest of the story. Then I will put her to death the next day." When morning broke, the day yawned, and they went off and they did their thing, and then they come back together. At night, King Shahryar governed all day and returned home at night to his quarters and got into bed with Shahrazad. Then Dinarazad said to her sister Shahrazad, "Please, sister, if you are not sleepy, tell us one of your lovely little tales to while away the night." The king added, "Let it be the conclusion of the story of the demon and the merchant, for I would like to hear it." Shahrazad replied, "With the greatest pleasure, dear happy king." She knows she's got him. She knows he's hooked. He's given in to that basic human drive of curiosity, and he can't let it go. She knows she's got him, as a great salesman knows when he has found a hook. So she's using this story to drag him out and slip under the radar this message about forgiveness, perhaps, or proportionality of punishment at the very least. And she is sitting there sending out all these little subliminal messages through the story of honestly, it's Quranic values, and the value of mercy is huge in Islam, and the value of piety and togetherness and being bonded to other people. All of those values are being expressed in this story, the first one that she tells, and she's using this to drag out this process. But in the meantime, just think about also the setting. It's emphasized, and always look for the little things. It's emphasized that they always come together at night. Night is the time for stories. During the daytime, they make a big deal about how the king left to attend to the affairs of the kingdom. During the day, you go to work. During the day, you have other stuff to do. But at night, you come together after hours and you entertain one another with stories. And just think about the power of that. Just think about the psychology of that. In the medieval world, it's even in relatively civilized parts of the world, it's still a very dangerous world, and there's a lot going on out there that you have no control over. So to huddle together in the evening and just spend a few hours listening to someone's voice tell you a story and indulging that and learning about other people and connecting to them through their stories, it brings you together. It is a way to connect with humanity. It is a way to enforce and promote that connection, because you are embracing one another, and that is one of the beautiful things that stories can do.